a quick adjustment on the stage. I'm going to introduce our next wonderful panel. So the rapid growth of electric vehicles is wonderful, but it has also made very clear the desperate need to build out a robust and widespread charging infrastructure. This next conversation, we are going to be talking about how to close that gap, what steps need to be taken, and soon, if we hope to decarbonize the transportation sector. So joining me on stage, we have Rolando Gonzalez Bunster, the chairman and CEO of InterEnergy. Come on up. Thomas Healy, CEO and founder of Healy. And Camille Terry, co-founder and CEO of Charger Help. Okay, so to get us all started today, I think because you all represent sort of a different side of this charging infrastructure question, and I think for the benefit of our audience, I want to give you all each a minute or so to just give a brief introduction of yourself and the work that your company is doing on EV infrastructure. I think it will help sort of set the stage for our conversation. So Rolando, would you like to go first?
Thank you very much, Catherine. Thank you for having us here. InterEnergy is a sort of a multinational energy company, primarily operating in the Latin American, Caribbean space. We own utilities, we own power plants, we own terminals, we own pipelines, we own transmission lines, and we have very much dedicated our efforts in the last few years to going all renewable, or as much as possible, but anyway, clean energy. We created a company about 3-4 years ago called Evergo. And Evergo is a charging company because I remember I had bought an electric vehicle, a Tesla, back in 2016. And I was mesmerized by the quality and the handling, and it was a Model X, which was the doors open like seagulls. Anyway, I was very, very impressed with that. I went back to my people. I said, listen, we have to get into this business of figuring out how to participate in the electric vehicle business. So I went back to the Dominican Republic and talking to my executives, we started testing and seeing what chargers were available so that we could start creating a demand for electric vehicles if you created the infrastructure for them to subsist in. And this was, we tested every possible charger at the time. We settled with one make, and we started to import these chargers. It was a chicken and an egg situation. You cannot create an industry if you don't adapt to all the solutions that industry needs, and you don't fill the needs of that industry. So what was originally a population of about 20 electric vehicles in the Dominican Republic became today, maybe there's over 20,000 vehicles. And the reason is that we installed throughout the country with very sophisticated software chargers. Today we have over 500 chargers in the Dominican Republic. We also created something which is unique, which was inaugurated this year, which is a hub, a very beautiful building with pizza restaurant inside, with coffee shop, ice cream shop, car rental company, exhibition of, in a very beautiful piece of land that we landscape very beautifully. We have exhibition, permanent exhibition of different electric cars available in the market. and a big sign outside says, "Charge your car with the sun." This is a 100% solar-powered hub, and this is where we want to take this business. Now, from there, when we started in the Dominican, we said, let's spread this business elsewhere. We are big. We're probably the biggest energy producers in Panama. We took our company, Evergo, to Panama, and this young lady here who's got a camera in her hand, or a phone in her hand, has spearheaded our Panamanian efforts. Roberto Herrera, sitting over there, is the one that has developed the Dominican business and we are now in the Dominican, we are in Panama, we're in Jamaica, where we are the largest generators of energy. We are in Puerto Rico soon. We're in Uruguay and Paraguay. And we look for countries where gasoline is expensive and electricity is relatively cheap. So the arbitrage is favorable. So one of the things that we believe in very much, and we don't get any subsidies. I should say that I'd like to hear how in the US you buy the cheapest car that GM produces, and it's under $40,000 or under $30,000 because there's a subsidy, $7,500 that the government gives you back. If you go install a charging station here, the government through the IRA will help you. So these are things that we don't have access to in Latin America. Now, we've become a little smarter. We're going to build our first hub in the borough of Queens here in New York City, 65 ultra-fast chargers to power taxi cabs and Ubers.
Great. Camille, I'd love to, that feels like a very natural sort of with everything that you all do.
Yeah, just quickly, I'm from South Central Los Angeles, and the way that I got interested in this space was really understanding the quality of our air. I talk about this quite often. During COVID, I live in a community where technically I should see the Hollywood sign, but literally it wasn't until COVID, until we stopped driving our gas-powered vehicles, that I actually saw the Hollywood sign. I live in a community that is surrounded by 3 freeways, where folks in my community from asthma. My mom passed away from lung cancer. My co-founders from Compton, both their parents passed away from lung cancer. So when we think about electrification, of course it's not the silver bullet, but it is something better than what we have today. And so at Charger Health, we've really been obsessed with what happens after you deploy. And if there are issues and opportunities to improve not only on the infrastructure, but also to create jobs, how can you do that? So Charger Health, we service charging stations across 17 states. We work with utilities and fleet operators, and then we also work with organizations like the LA Clean Tech Incubator to stand up workforces. We've trained over 1,000 people. Our technicians start off at $30 an hour as they get equity in the company. And what I'll wrap to say just about us and how we're connected is that we understand that there has to be a lot more work to be done here, but it's possible. And we can be able to do it through good businesses and working with the community to ensure that what we deploy not only is a good impact for the environment, but also for the community at large. And thank you so much for allowing us to be here.
Yeah, of course. Thomas, next.
Thanks for having me here. So founder and CEO of Healy, and we're a tech startup. So we went public a few years ago on the New York Stock Exchange, and our whole focus is making power generation technology. So I think without a doubt, we heard this shift to electric is happening. The thing that we haven't talked too much about is where is all this power going to come from? And we believe that we need to move to a distributed grid model, right? So as opposed to one big power plant that's going to push power out to all these different locations, you actually need those locations to actually make their own power and push that back into the grid. And with our solution, we found that we can actually make electricity cheaper. You can have it be more reliable, and you can actually have it be cleaner than your grid electricity. So we make a genset. Now, when I say genset, most people think of the Generac outside your house. That's not it at all. This is actually a generator that's designed to run 24/7 and make electricity all day, every day. And it's future-proofed because it can run on various fuels. It can run on hydrogen, it can run on ammonia, it can run on methanol, all these fuels that everyone's talking about. but can also run on the fuels of today, like natural gas and propane and diesel. So we think power generation really is going to be the solve to how do we get electric vehicles out there? How do we get data centers built out? How do we get industrial applications to move to electric?
So I'm curious, Thomas and Rolando, with both of you sort of working on the energy side of charging, I think there's a big question of what is the ideal setup, right, for a charging infrastructure sort of system. And I'm curious if you could speak to what does it look like in terms of the energy supply, the sort of collaboration between utilities and chargers, and how does that look like? I'm wondering if you two can talk about that.
I think you need to have a sort of a coexistence with the utilities. If the utility doesn't make it easy for you to install chargers, be it by permitting, be it by utilities as well as municipalities, if they don't give you the facilities to be able to do this, you're never going to be able to install the amount of chargers needed to run all the cars that are going to be on the road. So it's not only a question of highways, but it's a question of where you can put selectively the charging stations. So one issue is capacity charges. Utilities, if you consume either in your home, your industry, as you go above a certain level, you get hit with a very high capacity charge. So this is something that has to be negotiated, and charging hubs have to be able to make sure that they do not get overcharged with capacity charges. In our case, in our first hub in the Dominican Republic, we own the utility next to which it sits. So we're not going to be hit with a capacity charge. And also we have, since we're doing it with sunlight, it's a different concept. What we are now negotiating with Con Edison for our hub in Queens, and there, we will have about a 7 megawatt demand, and we will need to establish proper rules if everybody's charging at the same time, and we do exceed our capacity. We will try to avoid that by having load sharing capabilities in our system. Our software is such that if everybody is charging at the same time, it could make you charge certain hours of the day in certain meters, in certain chargers. So these are issues that have to be faced. If the government and the municipal as well as highway authorities, et cetera, give you the facilities, it is a lot easier. So the coexistence between the utility and the chargers is very important.
Great. Thomas, can you talk a little bit about the ideal collaboration here, what that looks like?
Sure. So I think a lot of people underestimate just how much power these vehicles can consume, especially commercial vehicles. So you're looking at, if you plug in 10 semi-trucks at the same time and charge all of them, those 10 trucks will consume the same amount of power as the entire Super Bowl stadium during game time. So 10 semi-trucks is nothing, right? We have millions of semi-trucks on the road here in the U.S. And so you need to work with your utilities. But what Rolando brought up is really true. Utilities are going to charge you peak charging rates, right? Those 10 semis show up. And guess what? If you're in California, you're probably going to get charged 40 to 60 cents per kilowatt hour because they're saying, hey, you just brought on a ton of load onto the grid. We're going to charge you peak rates, right? So if you can establish that collaboration with your utility, that doesn't happen, that's great. But what we found is you really got to look at other solutions like making your own power, having battery buffers in between in order to really actually make this work for the grid. And we're also seeing that the grids are getting tapped out. On average, you're probably looking at 3 years in the commercial vehicle space to even get an interconnect with your utility to put that charger online. So, it's a tough hurdle, but there are ways to solve it, which is the good news.
Great. Camille, I'm wondering if you can talk about, I feel like when most folks sort of see EV chargers I guess like out in the wild. They're sort of standing alone. Usually they're on the edge of parking lots. And I think we sort of think of them as, oh, great, they're in, they're done, they'll take care of themselves. But what you all are doing is really training a workforce to be able to maintain these. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the workforce portion of this and exactly like what are some of the biggest issues that these workers are fixing on these chargers?
Yeah, I think a little bit of a misconception is that by simply sending someone out on site that you can solve an issue, that it's not true. So the way that I got involved in the space is that I started off at a software company where I was EV driver support. And what happened was an EV driver would call in and they would describe a behavior of a charging station that I could not actually validate in our log data set. And then the other piece to it is that when I sent someone out on site to fix that station, they were more so doing QA testing and talking to a software engineer. And so when we started Charger Help, we really were interested, one, in the data set of the charging station behavior that was not being communicated, but then two, how do you equip that technician when you have to send someone on site with the right information and the right data set in order to solve the station issue? So when we think about workforce development, for us, we think about really augmented intelligence. So there's tons of issues that can be solved over the air if you get enough data. But then that allows you that when you do send with someone on site, you're creating a good job for them, and they're not simply cycling breakers or doing something that's very rudimentary. They're actually being a part of creating a reliable ecosystem. And so at Charger Help, we are, yes, training folks about like the hardware portion, but then also how to think critically and problem solve complex systems. And we've been doing this now for almost 5 years. And just to wrap up, the biggest challenge that we really have seen is around data interoperability, failure of handshakes between software systems. And this will continue to happen until we see more work around collaboration, which the Joint Office has been leading, and we've been helpful. We have a report out right now that studies a lot of that and put forth different recommendations for the industry.
Great. So in our last minute or so, I'm sort of going to ask you each a lightning question. And I had asked Governor Pritzker and Governor Beshear earlier today about if they had an ask, right? An ask for the audience, an ask for the federal government, an ask for, I don't know, whoever. I'm curious what your ask would be, each of you, in order to help speed along the deployment of a charging infrastructure.
I can start.
Yeah.
My ask is to take a look at our report. It's on our website. It's called the Charger Hope Annual Reliability Report. It's a study of over 19 million unique data points from 25,000 charging stations. And the biggest thing about this report is at the end, it has solutions, and it has examples of solutions from laws that can be passed to companies that are doing good work around reliability. This is a solvable problem. Thank you.
Rolando?
Well, the only ask I would have, because I operate mainly outside of the United States, but as we want to go into the United States, we would like car manufacturers to forget this idea about plug-in hybrid. I think that's being half pregnant.
Feel like, are you pointing that at a table over here? Thomas?
It kind of piggybacks what Rolando said. It's be practical with these rollouts, right? If there's not power in that area, or if it's 5 years to get a grid interconnect, maybe don't start there. Maybe go after school buses first, right? There are ways that we can adopt electric practically today, and those are the areas we need to address first.
Well, thank you, all three of you, for joining us on stage. This was wonderful.
Thank you very much.